A lot has happened in the last year, and I've made a lot of subtle changes to my room. And so like my last room tour, we'll go over my figure collection with their updated displays, we'll take a look at my vast manga and comic collection, we'll cover other gadgets and decorations that fill the room, before diving into my newly upgraded gaming setup. So with that, let's start my 2024 room tour. My figure collection is one area that probably has changed the most in the last year, and that's because a lot of my display cases are now set up with dioramas. But starting with my display cases, I have 4 Ikea Detolf display cases sitting on custom display case risers. And I do have a video about display case risers on my channel where I go over how I built these. And in the middle, we have the massive TerraVault case, with custom cut mirrors placed in the back of it. There's also a new display case in the room, which is pretty exciting because I have a lot of figures now. Now starting with my Detolfs, going from right to left this time, the first figures you're going to see are my Yae Sakura figures. And to quickly go over everything here, the backdrop picture is a large sticker printed and stuck on a wicked brick Detolf backplate. And the backplate has magnets so it just sticks right against the frame. A lot of the random props you see, like the stone lanterns, probably came from Etsy. And the cards I did get from eBay, which are either Fate Arcade cards, unofficial Goddess Story cards, or Y Schwartz cards. And these cards are in an Ultra Pro mini snap case and sit on an acrylic easel coin stand that I found on Amazon. And if you want to dive in deeper on how I made these dioramas, check out this video on my channel. And lastly, the Detolf lighting is a commercial electric cabinet lighting set that I got at Home Depot. They're a bit dated, but I do like the faint yellow tint. Now let's get back to the figures. The next figure down is Blaliden from Honkai Impact, which is still probably my favorite figure in my collection. Then we have Blackrock Shooter surrounded by black and white dice. And at the bottom, we have Ningguang and Ganyu from Genshin Impact. Moving on to my second Detolf, stuck in the middle of a forest, we have Eren, Mikasa, and Levi from Attack on Titan. And below them we have the beautiful succubus Albedo from Overlord. Then we have his epic Rimuru from that time I got reincarnated as a slime. And at the very bottom we have Plakta from Atelier Sophie. Hitting the TerraVault case we have Prince Eugen and Baltimore from Azure Lane, followed by Faustlander Hemet Nathal, Faustlander Samurai, and Faustlander Lance Rider, which are all original characters done by the artist Neko. And behind them we have 9S and 2B from Nier Automata. On the next shelf we have an interesting diorama with the Dark Angel Olivia from Rage of Bahamut, Albedo from Overlord, Miku from Vocaloid, Argenta from Dragon's Nest, and the Cheshire Cat from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. The next 2 shelves are my Fate Stay Night and Fate Grand Order shelves. And here we have Archer, Ren, Prototype Saber, Semiramis, Ozymandias, and the last 2 figures being different variations of Hokusai. And for reference, I present these figures with their Fate arcade cards. Now the next shelf has more Fate figures, starting with Okita, Avenger Joan of Arc, followed by the 3rd Ascension Joan of Arc, and at the end we have Mash the Shield Hero. Now getting back into my Detolfs, we have the Maiden Abyss Savior Bondrewd, accompanied by Rika and Anzu from Gantz. And below them we have the gorgeous Ghost Bride figure, which is probably the most expensive figure that I own, not taking into factor the aftermarket prices of some of my figures. And this figure's from the artist Fuzi Choco, who has an art book with an illustration of the figure. Then we have our Sword Art Online figures, Kirito, Asuna, and Sinon. And at the bottom, we have the Land of the Eternal Miku, standing in the middle of her beautiful diorama. And on the last Detolf, we have the lustrous chocolate and vanilla figures from Nekapara, along with Seely from Honkai Impact. Then we have Raftalia from Shield Hero, and the Bikini Warrior Archer. After them, we have Nia from Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and Rory Mercury from the Gate series. And at the bottom of the last Detolf, we have Mia from Code Vein. Now moving on to my new display case, and to give you a bit of details on it, I got this display case for free from a neighbor, so I have no idea where it came from since there's no markings on it. But the lighting I installed uses the Govee white LED strips, put in vertical V channels that I picked up on Amazon. That said, I will always recommend using LED strips with frosted V channels for display cases, because I feel that they're the cleanest lighting solution. Now getting into the figures, starting with the top shelf, we have Metalia from The Witch and the Hundred Knight, followed by Yuri Lowell from The Tales of Vesperia, and then one of my personal favorite, Dizzy from Guilty Gear. Then we have Elisa from God Eater, Velvet from Tales of Bisseria, and the guy that I always mess up the name, Misazuki from Touken Ranbu. Then we have a shelf with the ladies in the modern traditional outfits, starting with Sonya from Shining Resonance, Ayanami from Azure Lane, Tech Gear Shoshu, which is an original character done by Swave, and at the end we have Nisei Muramasa and Sensei Muramasa from Fullmetal Damon Muramasa. Now my next shelf is my Persona shelf with Joker, Kasumi, Futaba, Anne, and Rise. And on my next shelf we have my girls in latex tech gear, starting with Mithra from Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Angela from Expelled from Paradise, 02 from Darling and the Franxx, Asuka from Evangelion, and Callan from Code Geass. And at the very bottom we have our Cowboy Bebop figures, along with my Evangelion pop-up parades on a custom base, followed by another Asuka figure from Evangelion. If you want to see my full collection, check out my figure collection page. Now, one of my favorite parts of my room is my manga and graphic novel collection. I just love seeing books on shelves. And what I love about my collection is I tend to keep manga and graphic novels that I plan on reading more than once. But to dive into it, my book collection sits on the Ikea Hems bookcases, with 16.4 Govee LED RGB strips hiding behind the frame. Starting with my first shelf, it's still my cultured manga shelf, with Shui's scaled figure from No Game No Life, as well as her pop-up parade figure. Note, I do put tacky putty underneath my figures on the shelf so they don't accidentally fall off. The next shelf holds my complete Gantz manga, as well as my complete Zelda Twilight Princess manga, followed by my old school shelf, which contains a lot of manga which are no longer in circulation. Then we have the Attack on Titan shelf, followed by the One Piece shelf, and for those that are interested, I just took a 2x4 piece of wood and stuck it in the back row to give it that staggered book effect. And at the very bottom, we have my first shelf of graphic novels. Moving on to the next bookcase, we have the Ultimate Berserk shelf, with the Guts pop-up parade in his glowing eyes, as well as the cursed dice bag that I got at Comic-Con. Then we have our Fantasy and Isekai shelf. I do want to say that the Ascendance of a Bookworm manga completely caught me off guard, and now it's one of my favorite mangas. Maybe it's because it's an isekai that's not a power fantasy. But below, we have more fantasy and isekais. I do also want to call out that I enjoyed Radiant, which is a French manga. I really don't think it gets enough credit for how good it is. The next shelf is a mix of everything, including some manhwas or Korean comics. And below that, we have more fantasy manga. If you haven't guessed it, I really like fantasy stories. And at the very bottom, we have more graphic novels with a few new additions, which include a Witcher book, a Cyberpunk book, and a Diablo book. Moving on to the next bookcase, we have the Full Metal Alchemist shelf. I finally got to read these last year, though I grew up watching both of the TV series, and I have to say, Full Metal Alchemist is probably now my second favorite manga, right behind Berserk, but mainly because it does a great job at telling a cohesive story from start to finish. Though Attack on Titan also competes for my number 2 slot. Next is our Your Name shelf, with the Your Name pop-up parade sitting on a custom base. Then we have the Seraph of the Yin shelf, followed by Demon Slayer. Then we have our Steins Gate and Horror shelf, along with the Steins Gate Makise scale figure. And at the very bottom, we have my oversized manga shelf, along with 2 miniature Canadian hockey jerseys, which I got from McDonald's in Canada when I was younger. And on my last bookcase, we still have Prison School with Poon Poon. Then a lot of slice of life manga, along with Megumin's pop-up parade with some really cool fire effects around her. The next shelf is an all-star shelf with a lot of great manga, as well as the following shelf, also having a lot of my favorites. Then we have the Vinland Saga shelf, which is probably my 3rd favorite manga of all time. This shelf also has the Death Note box set, which is the manga I would recommend if you've never read manga before, but you want to give it a shot. And at the very bottom, we have the Avatar: The Last Airbender graphic novels, as well as my constant growing art book collection. To make things easier, here's the list of art books that I currently have. And that is it for my book collection. Now going over the lounging area of the room, this is the place that I watch movies, play games, and de-stress. The centerpiece of the room is still the LG 65-inch OLED TV, which has LED light bars sitting behind it. Above the TV, we still have the same art that I swap around from time to time. This art is all done by the same artist known as Drake Sui, or better known as Quirkalicious. I did get asked this a bit in my last video, but yes, the couch is comfortable, and it's from Ashley Furniture, though it is about 15 years old, so it might be hard to find the exact same one. And a new piece of furniture that I have in the room is my Yamaha digital piano. Now the room that I was originally in didn't allow me to play it that much, so by moving it down here, it gets a lot more attention. And this is still accompanied by my Seagull S6 guitar. To the right of the piano, I have my Tower of Movies, and here's a small glimpse of what I have. And at the top of the tower is my OLED Steam Deck, which is currently resting in its dock. There are so many games that I just enjoy playing more on a portable device, so I find myself playing on the couch, or in the bed, or a lot while I'm traveling, which I'm doing a lot more these days. And it's pretty easy just to plug it into the TV and use an Xbox controller if you want a bigger screen. And to answer the common question, hey, what games do you play on the Steam Deck? Here's what I play. Now speaking of traveling more, I am using the D brand Steam Deck case, which is a pretty amazing feeling case. And I also love how small the cover is when storing it in a backpack. And lastly, the last two pieces of furniture that fill out the room is the room divider that I got at Amazon and the artificial Japanese Frutikosa ficus tree. Unfortunately, Amazon doesn't sell this tree anymore, but I've seen trees like this show up on Etsy and other shops if you search for them. And my last callout is, my whole room is powered by the Amazon smart plugs. For example, turn on my room.
Okay.
Overall, this makes it super easy to walk in the room and turn on what I want, or remotely turn things on or off through the app. Now moving on to my PC setup, which is one of the largest changes over last year. And starting with the obvious, the new TIE Fighter monitor setup. Basically, I added my second monitor from my old dual monitor setup, since the second monitor was just sitting collecting dust in the garage. And I still have the Samsung Odyssey 49-inch Neo G9 LED monitor sitting on an Ergotron HX ultra-wide monitor arm. And the two side monitors are just old Asus 27-inch monitors sitting on Amazon basic monitor arms. And based on the feedback from my last video, I did flip my monitors to reduce the bezel between the ultra-wide monitor and the side monitors. I also picked up this Wise Coco 12.6-inch touchscreen, which I use for PC gauge monitoring or as a quick access monitor. And to hide the cables, I use this 180-degree U-shaped micro USB cable and a U-shaped mini HDMI to HDMI adapters to run the cables behind the monitor. And the monitor itself is just sitting on an adjustable phone tablet stand. But yes, there's a lot going on with my desktop. To quickly go over the apps that I use to get the look that I want, I use the translucent toolbar to hide my toolbar, which can be found on the Windows Store. I use Fences 3 to organize my icons on my desktop, as well as to hide them with a double click. This tool can be found on Steam. Wallpaper Engine is installed for animated wallpapers, which is also found on Steam. And down below in the mini monitor, I use Live 2D Viewer X to have an animated 2D character on my screen which follows my mouse around. And for all the cool hardware metrics, I use Ada64, which is a really customizable visual PC monitoring tool. This tool makes really good use of half-size monitors if you want to dedicate the whole monitor to it. But in this case, I created my own custom theme for my own personal use. And as for what's on the desk itself, I'm still rocking the Corsair K100 mechanical keyboard, though I did spice it up a bit with a few new different keys. Basically, it's a mix of Star Wars characters with Overwatch Diva and Project Melody keycaps. The mouse is still a Logitech G502 because I love customizing the weight. And it sits on the Corsair MM700 RGB extended cloth gaming mousepad. The speaker setup is the Logitech G560 Light Sync speakers, and I'm rocking the Elgato Wave 3 mic on the Elgato Wave mic arm, and I'm using an Elgato face cam since I do a lot of conference calls at home. And a new addition to my desk is the Vulcan MagSafe 3-in-1 wireless charging stand, which charges my iPhone, my Apple Watch, and my AirPods. And all of this sits on a 70-inch by 30-inch uplift standing desk with a pheasant wood desktop. Now let's go over my biggest change. I changed my PC. My last PC was a Corsair build, which I loved. Corsair does make great hardware, but I always wanted to try a lean Lee build. And here we have it. I'll put up the specs on the screen, but basically it's an Intel i9 13900K processor on an Asus Republic of Gaming Maxis Z790 Hero motherboard with 64GB of 6400 MHz RAM on 2 DIMMs because it's more efficient, but also because the motherboard has serious issues using 4 DIMMs. Now the elephant in the case is the NVIDIA RTX 4090 graphics card. And all of this sits in the Lee 011 Dynamic Evo XL full tower. And this tower rests on a basic mobile PC stand to get a bit of elevation. And the water cooling system with the cool LED screen is the Lee Galahad 2, and I'm just looping random videos on it. And as for the fans at the bottom with the PC gauges, they're just the Lee Uni TL LCD 120 reverse blades, which allows you to customize the gauges or replace them with images or videos. But yeah, that's my PC build. Overall, I'm really happy where this room is at the moment, and I'm not quite sure how I'm going to change it over the next year. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But now you've seen my room setup, hopefully it gives you some inspiration if you want to set up something similar yourself. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. But with that being said, thanks again for watching and hope to see you all again soon and take care.